Welcome to Overflow the podcast, formerly the In This Together podcast, still hosted by Maia, me, now joined by Blakely.
We're inviting you into real, honest conversations with guests like Chance and Isla
And friends, all about life, faith,
health, relationships, and more. It's not about having it all together.
It's about letting God lead. By His grace,
not ours, our cups overflow, even in the wild and barren places, just like Psalm 23 promises.
So grab your laundry basket, start your walk, or just take a breather.
We're so glad you're here.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Overflow the podcast. We are so excited to be talking again today, and we have quite a fun topic because last week, if you listen to the podcast, we talked all about community and creating a space for community, and we had our amazing friend Abby Walsh on. She's so sweet, and she's like how sweet she is on camera. Like she is
10 times.
Yeah, 10 times that in person. She's awesome. And we really, Blakely and her talked about just community, creating spaces for women, and just friendship and community. And now we're going to talk about, so they talked about like all the positives, like the things that they did really well, the things that they are doing very well. And honestly, I just kind of thought of this topic. I was like, this is so awesome that they have done so many things so well, but I have done so many things so wrong whenever it comes to friendship and just community and relationships. And also too, with this podcast, we really want to be real in the sense of we're not sitting here and we're not like friendship gurus who have never messed up and who have never struggled in friendship. And so we want to talk about the ways that we specifically have failed as friends, not just to out ourselves, but also to one, humble ourselves, and two, to also talk about how we've taken that and actually become stronger friends. Yeah. And because friendship is just so important, and we talked about it a lot in the last episode, but I think it'll be so cool to really talk about how we've taken these failures. And I know so many girls, friendship can be a really difficult topic because there's a lot of hurt and pain that comes from it, as well as a lot of joy. And so I think sometimes when you've been hurt by a friendship, it's so easy to just kind of stay there and be like, oh, I failed in a friendship. Like I completely failed, and to kind of stay in that shame and to stay in that guilt. And we really want you to hear this and be like, okay, I, one, can repent, and two, I can turn and I can actually make this into a really beautiful way that I am even a better friend. And so we hope that this just meets you right where you're at. And we're going to be talking about 4 points, 4 ways that Blakely and I have failed. And we're talking about 4 ways how we've become better friends because of it.
Yes and amen, Maya. Yes.
All right, and amen. You kick us off, girl. I'm sorry. I'm putting you in the hot seat.
One of the things that Maya and I just feel so strongly on with just this podcast in general is it is such a gift for us to have a space where we can come on here and admit the ways that we have fallen short, whether it's on the episode about breakups or whatever it is. Getting to this today is such a gift for us because we have failed so much in our friendships. And if you are listening to any of this, I hope that these failures prevent you from having to go down the same path in your friendships. Yes. So we are starting off strong on gossip.
Great, strong mic drop one that everyone probably just winced in their seat whenever they heard Blakely say that. They're like, oh my gosh, are they really going there? We're going there. We're talking about it. You go ahead.
And I feel as though many of you probably feel the temptation to click off of this podcast right now because this is such a stereotypical I failed as a friend topic, or even just any sermon, message, podcast you hear about friendship and the health of friendships. I feel like to some extent touches on gossip, but we just want to begin with gossip because we feel like it is such a toxic thing in any relationship, whether that's friendship, whether that's with family members, whether that's in a dating relationship, whatever it is. The act of gossiping about another person is sure to soon destroy that relationship. And so whenever I was thinking about what are the ways I failed as a friend, and so many came to my mind, one of the first was actually an experience I had with getting caught in the act of gossiping. And so I'll just rewind us back to, it was my senior year of college, and I was sitting in our living room with a friend, and it was recruitment season. And I was talking to my friend, and we were talking about just other sororities and other girls, and it just very quickly got gossipy, and we were talking badly about other people, and also in the midst of that justifying why we were doing that, of like, oh, well, it's okay. Like, it's recruitment season and it's fine. Like, this is just what you do. And I think we often do that with friends while we're gossiping, is we so easily find ways to justify it of like, well, I just need to tell you this situation, or I just need to vent it to someone. Like, you're my person to vent it to. But meanwhile, we're just justifying an action that's really just so ungodly and not what we're called to be as friends, and not who we're called to be as friends. And so actually one of my other roommates, I lived with 6 girls, came into the room while we were having that, and we didn't realize she was in the kitchen listening. So our living room was attached to the kitchen by a wall. So she had been in the kitchen listening to us for like 30 minutes to an hour. And she comes in and she's like, I just have to say this because my heart's pounding. I feel like I need to say this. And I just want to call you guys higher as friends, but what you're doing is so not okay. And you are sitting here gossiping about these girls that you don't even know, or that you're not even close with, or some that you are close with. And I can't stand here and listen to it anymore. Wow. And it was the most like crippling feeling to be caught in that, because for 30 minutes we had been just justifying what we were doing, and to be called out in it and to be called higher by a friend obviously doesn't feel like a great thing, but it was so what we needed. And the second part of this conversation is don't be afraid to be that friend, because in the moment I think there was a feeling of like, oh, I cannot believe she just did that. But looking back, I am so grateful that she loved us enough to call us out of that and to call us higher. Wow. And so we were talking about this earlier, but I feel like all throughout scripture, there is so much about just how to be a good person in relationships. And one of the topics that is specifically addressed is gossiping. And in Matthew 18:15 actually says, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take 1 or 2 others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. And I think it's so easy for us to read scripture and not apply it to the circumstances of our life. It's easy. I think we've all heard that verse before. But when we're actually trying to pursue God and follow him, that should translate into every part of our lives, including our relationships. And so I feel so challenged by that verse every single day. And so
good. I think sometimes we disguise gossiping by saying, oh, I'm just venting. Oh, I just need to get this out and I just need to share. And I think that's when we're just venting to somebody about how somebody's hurt us or whatnot, or even just a situation we saw. It's like, that's actually not venting. Like, we've disguised gossiping, which is basically like talking about somebody poorly behind their back where they're not in the room. Also, just think, if somebody said this about me and I wasn't in the room to defend myself, how would I feel? Wow. Or thinking about just that aspect of, if someone was even saying this about me in general, how would I feel? And I think I've done that so many times, in the sense of, I've been like, okay, I just need to vent about this. Like, this is something that really upset me. And whenever I heard that verse, we were actually with Janine, or whenever she had said it from a stage. Do you remember that? When we were talking, we were in Dallas and she said that, and it made me realize, like, wow, I have been disguising so many things in the name of like venting, when I should have just gone to the source. And if it's something that is really upsetting me so much, to the fact that I need to gossip about it, one, I feel like there's a bunch of different reasons why we gossip, but I'm just addressing the one where like somebody actually upset you and you're just going around and you're talking about it behind somebody's back. It's that verse right there. Instead of doing that, going to the source of that person, like to the person that hurts you. Because what ends up happening, and one of my best friends and I, we always talk about this, but what ends up happening when we go to other people is we start to create this narrative in our head, and we haven't even allowed them to speak into it. Like, we haven't even allowed, like, say somebody has not been texting you back for 2 weeks, and you're like, I can't believe this friend. Like, I can't believe she's doing this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, rather than texting the friend and being like, hey, like, I haven't heard from you. Like, what's going on? I miss you, whatever. And then we have like this whole narrative in our head. We start to get resentful. And then we actually end up texting her and she's like, oh my gosh, like somebody passed away, or, oh my gosh, I've been so sick with the flu, or whatever it might be. Or she might've just forgotten and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That is my fault. But I think we build up all these like different narratives rather than just going to the source with gossiping. I think that's how it breeds literally this disunity amongst us. And I think also we gossip. So that's like when somebody's actually hurt us, like going to the source. And I think, if I'm so honest, I also have gossip because I'm just bored. I don't know what to talk about. And so I start talking about other people and what's going on in their lives because I don't have anything good or a good question to ask. And if you're somebody who you realize that you gossip a lot because maybe you're bored, I encourage you to like think of other things you can talk about. I know that sounds so
huge,
silly and stupid, but it's like, it's so simple. Yeah. Like I know so many people that I'm in the room with them and I'm talking and I'm like listening to them gossiping. And I'm like, we're just doing this because you have nothing else to talk about. And I've been the person to do that as well. Same. And so I think just kind of something that's helped me is like actually getting better at asking questions and becoming a better communicator rather than just gossiping being the way that I communicate.
So good.
And so that's been something that's like really, really, really helped me. And I will say it's been so cool. And so kind of going back one step to when somebody's hurt you, you're like, oh, well, I'm just seeking wise counsel. Whenever you're venting to somebody, it's like, you know, when you're seeking wise counsel versus when you're just sharing it to share and to, you know, put that other person down. And so I would really encourage you, if there is something that hurt you and that you're like talking about, if you're going to go to wise counsel, like prefacing with this of like, I don't want to vent right now. I am upset, but like, I actually need wise counsel is why I'm coming to you rather than just kind of opening the can of let's gossip. So
good.
Those are some things that kind of helped me.
Something I'll say on that point that has changed my life with gossiping, and I don't have one currently. I go to counseling, but I don't have a mentor specifically. Yeah. My point is having a mentor in your life that is removed from your daily life and is just someone that you trust to receive wise counsel from is so influential in your gossiping life, because I think for me, it was often, I was just like, I don't know who to go to. And so I would just go to the nearest person, whether that was my roommate or friend or mom or whoever. And having a mentor provided another space for me to go to when it really was something I needed counsel for. And it avoids getting dicey with your friends and it just leads down a bad path. But when you go to a mentor, you really stick to the point and you're like, I just need advice from this. So that's just a thought that came to my head, is just the importance of seeking out a mentor, praying for one. God will provide, even if that's 6 months down the line or tomorrow.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think one of the things that gets us in trouble with gossip is that we forget that the words that we have power. It says that our tongue has the power of life or death. And so it's almost like we have this lion that is our words that has the power of life or death and can really hurt somebody. But we don't treat it like that. Like we think, oh, it's just some words. Like they're never going to find out, or this is not going to, it's not going to get back to them. It's like, it doesn't even matter if it gets back to them. It's maybe planting a seed in somebody else's heart, of something. And I remember one of the things that was always, whenever I was trying to find friends, and when I even try and find friends nowadays, is seeing how they talk about people when they're not in the room. And I remember, because in high school, I was so hurt by girls who I would hold having to go pee because I was so scared about what they were going to say about me. I was so scared to leave the room. Maia. And I remember that's been something that's been so important to me. Isla and I talk about this all the time of like, I just really, really value somebody who I know that I can leave the room with them and I'm not going to have to worry about what they're saying, because of the words that did get back to me hurt me so much. And they've stuck with me for years. Like I'm 25. That was 7 years ago that I was in college. Almost 8-9 years, or in high school, I mean. And those words have still had so much power over me. So I think that a lot of times we just gossip because we don't realize the just gravity of it, because we don't realize that there's actually power of life or death in our tongue, that it could hurt people so much. And like, think about it. If I encourage you, like, you could probably right away think of something that's hurt you that was probably spoken like 10 years ago. And you've had millions of things spoken to you since then. It just shows the power of like what we hold on to. And so, I think there's probably people in this moment who need to pause this and repent. And even, something that can be so powerful is, I remember I called Blakely one time and I had gossiped about somebody and said something I wasn't proud of. And I literally called her back and I was like, hey, I just wanted to say, like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, I'm so sorry. And like, actually humbling myself. Like, I thought about it all day long and I was like, man, I should not have like exposed that information. And I remember afterwards, like, yes, it didn't make the situation like better, but I know that I repented and that like it just really built some humility in my heart. And I also was like, okay. So anyways, that's just a little tip that maybe somebody needs to pause this right now and just repent for something that's happened. But so anything else you would add on the gossip note before we move on to number 2?
I think the one thing that is coming to my mind is I so often and I'm sure some of you do this too, but I will begin gossiping like after a phone call or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to make sure my phone's not still on or still recording. And that is so disgusting that I'm saying something that requires me to make sure my phone's not recording, because if it got back to that person, I would be hurting them.
Okay, I have a really good question.
Yes, hit me with it.
If you are in a space where maybe you're gossiping or your friends are gossiping and you realize you're there, like maybe that's a lot of people are going to have to listen, or they're going to listen to this. They're going to have to break patterns with their friends because of their friends that they just sit around and they just gossip. And that's what they do when they hang out. And that's very real. And if that's you, like, I'm so proud of you for continuing to listen to this and for wanting to make a change in your friendships. And my question to you would be like, how do you make a different pattern than keeping on doing that? And how do you, like, maybe whether it's in the moment, and then maybe how does somebody have the boldness to, like, okay, change the subject? I will say Chance, my husband, is so good at like changing the subject when that happens, like in a group of, he was in a baseball team and they're all together, but I feel like he's always so good at like kind of changing the subject. But yeah, what advice do you have on that?
That is such a great question, because I was actually thinking about that earlier when we were talking, and I think that there is such a strength in praying for discernment in situations. Sometimes God might be nudging you to say something in that moment of, listen, we have to stop. This is not okay. And I want to call us all higher. But I think more often than not, I have a friend in my life who is so good at just changing the subject. And it's a subtle way. And I'm not promoting being subtle and not being direct and bold and all the things. But I do think that sometimes it is so beneficial to just subtly change the subject, and the person on the receiving end of that knows exactly what you're doing. Because I have a friend who's so good at that, and every time she does it, it's almost like without her having to say anything, I know she's realizing that what we're doing is getting gossipy, and before it even gets too far, she's changing the subject. And without her having to say like, Blakely, stop, quit gossiping, whatever, I know from her changing the subject that we need to move on, and that she's kind of subtly calling me out in that. I think just getting good in different situations to know when to say something like my friend did in the kitchen, or when to just bring up different topics, and maybe it is even just removing yourself from the situation.
Like you see the conversation going down that route, and before it even gets to the point, you're able to change a conversation, which I think is a really good ability. And then there's sometimes that you might need to just say like, hey, we probably shouldn't talk about this. Like, let's be done. You know, we shouldn't be talking about this, like how that is. So I really, really like that piece of advice.
What would you say?
Oh gosh, I would say everything you said. I would say that I feel like that's all I got. Yeah, touche to that.
Okay, touche to that. All
right, well, anything else while we're on the gossip talk?
Let's go to point number 2.
All right, let's go to point number 2. So
hey, Strike.
Hey, Mr. Guy.
Strike really likes point number 2.
Yes, he does. So he's coming out from under the abyss of my desk to
Hello,
talk about
Mr. Strike.
But so number 2 is something, I'm just going to start with my failure. My failure is, if you know me, if you're close to me, if you're my mom listening to this right now, you know I am bad at answering my phone. And I'm sorry.
Guilty.
And I recognize, I think I have hurt a lot of my friends very unintentionally. Like, truly not meaning to hurt them. It's not like I see their text and I'm like, oh, I just don't want to talk to them, or I'm ignoring them. It's like I very unintentionally hurt friends because I just have been a horrible communicator, and because I didn't really anyways, I'm not even going to try and excuse it because it's not excusable. I just am a bad communicator, and that's not something that I really valued a lot in my family growing up. And so it's just Chance, on the other hand, like if you call him, he will call you back. He will answer your phone call. Like Chance's mom, she's answering and she's in the shower. Like it is like, I don't think she's ever missed a phone call. Like their family is so good about it. And my family, we're just like, oh, we'll talk when we talk, you know? So I just have kind of always taken that. And it's made me, honestly, my mom's really good at communicating. So she's going to listen to this and she's going to be like, Maya, I tried to teach you better. You were just unteachable. And you're right, Mom. I'm just a bad communicator, and I've just really hurt friends. And I've really hurt friends because I've not responded to them in times that they've needed. And I'll never forget, I missed a voice memo from one of my friends, and she was just like really going through it. And I missed a voice memo from her, and I listened to it like 2 weeks later, and I was like, oh my gosh, she needed me in that moment. And I felt so bad. I was almost like borderline of tears, upset with myself, because I was like, I cannot believe I missed being there for her. I love her so much. And she actually was so graceful, and she wasn't mad at me, but I was so mad at myself because I wasn't there for her. And then I've had friends on the opposite end where I have missed a voice memo from them, and it's like a month later and I'm going to respond. They're like, really, Maya? Like, you're going to respond to my month-old voice memo? And I was like, yeah, I am. And I think what I've really learned and what I've really learned is it's hurt them, you know, no matter if a friend, you know, it didn't bother them super much, or for me, I know that I still let her down, and I know that a friend's meant to love at all times. And I know that, you know, I know in friendship, our whole worlds aren't supposed to be like dependent on one another, but she was a friend who needed me at that time. And I wasn't there for her. And so anywho, I've really wrestled, and I'm really, really trying to get better. And I wish that I have just like gotten better overnight, but it hasn't. It's been me like really, because the truth is I just genuinely don't like being on my phone. Like, I'm on it for work, and then I just like don't care to be on it. I like to do other things, I like to read, I like to work with my hands, and I just don't like being on my phone, and I don't like responding to people, and I just don't like texting. But that, just because of those things, doesn't give me a pass to be a bad friend, because what I am doing is I'm being a bad friend by not answering them and being there for them. And I'm not saying I need to answer like every single day, but I do need to get better at it. And so I know that's how I failed, and how I've been trying to get better about it is I've been trying to once a week look at my friends, like look at my text messages and be like, okay, I need to go through and see who of these are people I'm close with, you know, and my friends and family and whatnot, and making sure that I am responding to them. And that's really helped me, but I've still missed things. And so I'm trying to just, honestly, I'm just sitting in this chair and I'm like, I'm just trying to get better at responding to my friends, because I know that they want to talk to me. And I think obviously a lot of my friends I do life with now that I'm in Florida, like when I'm here. So it's really easy for them, and like we don't have to text all the time. But whenever I go up north for baseball season, or a lot of you listening to this have long distance friends, I'm trying to get into better rhythms. And actually Isla and I, we were really proud of ourselves. So I will say this, but we were like, we did such a much better job of staying connected this season than we normally do. And because we had been calling each other and like texting one another about funny things and whatnot. And so I think I've definitely grown in some areas with my friends, but I'm still not exactly where I want to be. So what about you?
Good. So good. Gosh, I am literally the world's worst at texting.
This is probably both of our Achilles heels, if we'll be honest. For sure. Like, this is where we both really do struggle.
Yes. Like, I have missed very important texts, and it's been 2 months.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anyone will get this, but one time I saw a reel that had gone viral that felt like someone had read the manuscript in my brain of how I feel towards communication. So I think that a lot of people will get this, but basically I have this issue of not responding, and this is not an excuse. I'm just confessing. Mm-hmm. I have an issue of not responding because I will be working, or I'll be on my phone, whatever, and then I see something come up, and I have responded in my brain to it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're asking me how I'm doing. I just responded in my brain. Great, move on. I'll actually respond to it later. Yeah. Well, later comes, and all I remember is responding in my brain. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, whatever. And anyways, so then I never actually respond, which is so horrible. And I don't make the time to actually sit down and go through my text at the end of the day, because like Maya said, not in a making an excuse way, we are just on our phones so much that at the end of the day, I'm like, I really don't want to sit on my phone and scroll through text tonight. I just don't want to do that. But that lack of intentionality that would probably take 5 minutes is resulting in me being a bad friend and in me being an unintentional friend and in me just not taking the time to pray for my friends that aren't living with me. And so I have had so many moments the past couple months where I have just felt so convicted of this. And Maya and I talk about this a lot, of just the fine line between understanding that we are not supposed to be accessible 24/7. I think we've both had experiences with friends where we're like, okay, like we are just not in a season to call you every single day. That's just not going to happen. But then at the same time, I fall too much towards that sometimes, to where then that really takes away from me reaching out, because I'm just relying on that so much. And so I just encourage you, if you are, Maya and I both have so many long distance friends.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are long distance and different time zones. And it's just really difficult. And I think challenging yourself to put the effort forth, but also having grace. I mean, one of my very best friends, she got engaged 2 months ago, and we have literally not spoken on the phone in like 2 months.
Yeah.
And we are just in this crazy phone tag game. But I think for both of us, it's just the fact of knowing that we're each trying,
Pursuing
even
each
though
other,
we're
yeah.
not necessarily catching each other at the right times.
Yeah.
We can both see, okay, Alex called me yesterday. Like, I know she's trying.
Yeah.
Blakely called me today. I know she's trying.
Yeah.
And I think just having grace for the other person in their season of life that they're in, but also understanding that it takes effort and it takes sacrifice to maintain friendships.
Yeah, that's so good. I had a really good conversation actually with Isla whenever it came to how we've gotten better at doing long distance friendship, is because of she's somebody who she's like, you know, I could talk all the time. Like she, you know, she wants to talk all the time. And I'm like somebody who I'm like, I don't like talking on the phone. I don't like FaceTiming. Her and I always joke. She's like, we are great, like in-person friends. Like you're a great in-person friend. Like you will be there for everything, but like on the phone, that's just not your strong suit. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to get better. So I asked her, I was like, okay, when can we call? Like actually, instead of just saying, I want to call and I miss you, it's like, when can we call? And so we've been better at like, okay, there's about 2 weeks have gone by. I haven't talked to Isla. I want to call her, or I'm going to send her a funny text, or I'm going to do this. I think what really makes people upset in friendship is when they just feel like radio silence from the other end. And I think like, even if like y'all are playing phone tag, it's like, you're still pursuing each other. Like, you know that the other person's still thinking of you. And I think that's the part that I'm calling myself higher in, is like, actually going and just sending a text or whatever it is, and being intentional in that manner. And also I think finding your maybe strong suits too, in the sense of voice memoing has been really helpful for me. Isla and I always been voice memos. Me and my friend Anna always send voice memos, and it's just been so nice because of you can kind of listen to it on their own time, and that still makes Anna feel pursued, you know? So I think figuring out how your friends feel pursued is really important too. So yeah, that's a way I've definitely failed, but it's really important. And I like what you said about, you know, we've talked about this a lot, but we're not always meant to be accessible in the sense of, you know, Jesus would have time where he would go and he'd be away from people, and he would go draw away to pray. So it's like, we still have, I think, me still having my sacred time where it's like, okay, I don't need to respond to this message right now. Having that sacred time of, okay, I'm going to go away to pray. Yeah. But also realizing that that's not every day of my life, and not, you know, using that as an excuse not to text my friends back within a week. Like I can definitely do that. So I think maybe right now you're somebody and you feel really convicted. I would encourage you to kind of think of maybe some goals you could have for yourself, or like, what is, like for me, a practical one was like on Mondays or like once a week, I try and really look at what my text messages are and like going and answering them. And maybe it needs to have like, you need to have a conversation with your friend of like, okay, what are your expectations of long distance friendship? Because, and we should do a whole long distance episode, but what are your expectations on long distance friendship and calling and texting and communicating? Because for a lot of my friends, it looks different. Like I remember one of my best friends, her name's Bailey. We probably talk, we do not talk for like 6 months, and then we see each other in person and it's totally great. And that's like the friend that I am. Like I love that. Like I'm like, let's go. But I also, I'm like, yes, like let's do this thing. And her and I, like I would still consider one of my very, very best friends, even though like I think I haven't gotten a text back from her in like, 7 weeks, but that's okay. But then there's some friends who like that would really hurt them if that happened. Yeah. And so she knows that doesn't really hurt me, and that we kind of have that relationship. So there's just different friends require different things. So good. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But yeah.
That actually leads us perfectly into point number 3, which is peacekeeping versus peacemaking.
I can't wait to hear this from you because I don't know a ton about it, but I'm excited.
And I bring that up in response to what Maya was just talking about, because the importance of communicating your expectations in a friendship is huge. And so often we don't communicate how we're feeling, what our expectations are, because we just think it's easier to just not, and that the peace will be made if we just avoid talking about things. And so that
been there.
So perfectly leads us into point number 3, peacekeeping versus peacemaking. Do you know how to explain the difference between the two?
Honestly, I'm going to let you go with this one because I feel like you're the one who, it was cool. They had mentioned it at some point on Saturday, like Blakely and her boyfriend Lawson, and then who's actually behind the camera right now. So shout out to our cameraman. And so they had talked about it on Saturday, and I thought it was really cool because on Sunday I had never heard that concept before, honestly. And then on Sunday he mentioned it at church from a verse, which I thought was really cool. And then now we're doing this podcast on Tuesday.
The four of us, me, Chance, Maya, and Lawson, are sitting at church, and Maya hits me because he's talking about Matthew, which is, again, perfect segue. Matthew 5:9 says, it's Jesus talking about the Beatitudes, and it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And Lawson actually brought this to my attention because I had never thought about the difference between peacekeeping and peacemaking. But for those of you that are listening, you're like, what the heck does that mean? Basically, the difference in, we'll use a friendship, for example. When you are in a friendship and someone has wronged you or you have fallen short, where there needs to be a discussion to be had, and you sit on the side, and I have done this so many times, where I have sat on the side of being a peacekeeper. And what that means is not addressing anything that has happened because you just think it's easier, you think it's better, you don't want to make any ruffles, you don't want to cause any issue, you don't want to hurt their feelings, so you just remain silent, even though what they did has really hurt you or what you did has caused them hurt. Peacemaking in that situation is saying, I don't really care the consequences of this, whether it's scary for me or it makes me nervous, or maybe it will, make them nervous, whatever it is. I don't really care about the emotions tied to it. The awkward is a better word. I don't really care about the awkwardness of it. I am going to take a step of faith and have this conversation with them and apologize for what I did or what I said, or explain to them that what they did or what they said really hurt me. And in the end, I think the power of peacemaking in my life has just changed so many relationships. And it's so funny because in high school, I did not do this. I was the most avoidant. Just if a conflict happened with my two best friends, we wouldn't talk about it. We would never address it. And I remember I was at a program going into college, and I had a really bad situation happen to me. And a girl who is a lot older looked at me and she was like, "Blakely, by you saying something and addressing this, that is honoring your own heart. And in the end, it will also honor theirs. And maybe a friendship doesn't blossom necessarily out of this hard conversation, but you will find peace through it." And so from that point on, I have definitely failed, but I've tried so much more often that when I'm hurt in a situation or by a friend or vice versa, to just have the hard conversation, because God calls us. It literally says in the Beatitudes, which is just such an important piece of scripture. But again, I'll just read it. "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." And creating peace isn't always the easiest thing to do, but it is literally what we are called to do in our relationships.
So good. And I think it's kind of cool that we're both sitting here right now, because Blakely and I do business together. We do ministry together. We're best friends. We're cousins. We do literally so much together. And I think that this has been something that has truly strengthened our relationship so much. And for me, I think that peacemaking relationships has really shown me the relationships that I will go deep with and probably hold on for a long time,
That's a great way
because
to
of those are the ones that are, it's kind of like that refining process. And sometimes people, after the refining process and you peacemaking, you're like, "Hey, this really hurt me. I'm so like," say somebody does something and they hurt you in a friendship. And it's like, "Hey, I love you so much." And you say it in a kind way. Peacemaking, obviously, it's not about you going and abrading the other, like bombarding the other person. It's about saying like, "Hey, I love you. Whenever you didn't invite me here, that honestly really hurt my feelings. And, I just would love to maybe be invited, even if I can't come," or something like that. Maybe it was something kind of along those lines. And so you just have that conversation. And whenever it's somebody who has been like become a deeper friendship, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." Maybe they get a little defensive at first. They explain why. But at the end of the day, we continue to be friends. We continue to have our friendship. And I think that has really shown and allowed for me to deepen other friendships. And then there's also been times where I've had that conversation with someone. I'm like, "Hey, like, I love you so much. This kind of like upset me with whatever it was." And I say it. And then they're like, "Okay, bye."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, well, this is going to happen in a
let there be
relationship.
peace.
Yeah. And like, it's going to happen in a relationship. Like Blakely and I talk to each other all the time. There's times I have upset Blakely and there's times that she's upset me. And I think what's made us so strong in friendship is we don't sit here and we say, okay, we just can't talk about it. We got to keep the peace, because what happens is you build resentment and you just sweep it under the rug, and eventually something happens and you probably either just explode or you start to drift away from the other person. But for what's happened is we're like, hey, like, let's bring this to the table. It's not like we've had to bring up every single thing that's maybe upset us, because I know Blakely's heart and her character as we've been friends for so long. But I think what happens when you peacemake is you're like, okay, let's not let the enemy, through whatever has happened, create a disunity between us. And so it's so important. And what peacekeeping does is it actually allows that disunity to stay there, because you're not actually helping you're not getting anything out from under the rug. You're just you're overloading what's under the rug. You know, you're just stuffing things down. And so it's really interesting. You're actually not allowing people, and you're not allowing God to do the restorative work, the redemptive work, and the forgiving work that he wants to. And a lot of times we don't want to do it because we don't want to humble ourselves, and because of maybe the pride, or because of we're scared of the awkwardness. And let me tell you, in all my best friendships, I've had peacemaking, I've had awkwardness, I have hurt them. But what's made us so much stronger isn't the fact that even I've come up to them and shared with them like ways that I've been hurt. It's been that God has used those situations to deepen and to create peace in that relationship. So I love that it says, blessed are those other peacemakers, because of that's how my relationships feel where we've been peacemakers. Is I feel so immensely blessed, not because they haven't hurt me and not because I haven't hurt them, but because so much peace has come from that.
So good. I'm going to bring up an example, and I don't think you'll care, but like Maya said, the sole reason that everything we do together works is because, and before I say this, we have fallen short so many times and have probably not addressed things that we should have. But by God's grace, he's led us to more situations where we get to address it. But very recently, Maya and I were talking about, we were on a phone call. This is maybe like 2 months ago.
I'm like trying to think of which one she's talking about. If that just shows you that it doesn't make me sad thinking about it. I'm like thankful that we've had peacemaking things. So anyways,
because that is just inevitable in any friendship, any relationship. It is inevitable, and I don't want that to scare you. But I want to sit here.
It's not something to be afraid of. It really isn't. I hope you hear that.
And us even serve as a testimony to you of our relationship is so much strengthened, so much more strong because of the hard conversations we've had. And so a few months ago, we were on the phone and we were talking about what podcast we were going to do the next couple of days. And I was just upset about something because I just wasn't on the phone. I was being very passive, very short. Maya could obviously tell that I was upset. I was with Lawson actually at this coffee shop, and I was just like, I don't even want to tell her. Like, it was so weird. I just wouldn't say why I was upset on the phone call. And something that Maya is so good at, and that I've learned so much from her, is she is a caller. Like, the second that phone call ended, I sent her this long text about why it hurt my feelings because I was too scared to call. Why was I too scared? I don't know. But we all face that. It's just awkward. It's true. And it's scary. And I hid behind my text and I sent her this long text and she immediately calls me and she's like, let's talk about it. Like, I don't even think it had been 20 seconds.
I didn't even read the whole thing.
No.
I just read like the first few sentences and I was like, let's call.
And let's call. And so, yes, that is just an example. And we had this call, and by the end of this call, we had talked about things just regarding our podcast in general that it was such a game changer for just the podcast longevity in general. And it led to such fruitful conversations, and so not good. That's a all great point. Confrontation and conversational resolution type things. Not all of them are going to end in the best outcomes. I've had really hard ones that kind of just end where you're like, well, that maybe made things worse. Yeah. But I still so firmly believe that it's so worth it, even in those situations.
There's this verse, and I wish I knew exactly where it's from, but Cassie always mentions it, and it says, as much as it is up to you, live at peace with everybody. Sorry, but Blakely just hit the mic. I'm going to say that one more time. As much as it is up to you, live at peace with everybody. And so what you said, Blakely, it's like you've had those conversations with somebody, and maybe it's like, okay, well, that didn't really go over but as much as it was up to you, you tried to peacemake. And so that's a really great point to bring up, is that not every conversation will the other person be receptive, and will it actually lead to like this peaceful friendship?
Good.
And I think just not being discouraged, because it is as much as it is up to you that you can do these things, but you can't control what the other person says. And yeah, that is heartbreaking whenever somebody maybe doesn't receive it well, or, you know, they're just, maybe I've had times where I've been so defensive, you know.
Totally.
But I will say that I'm so glad that even if I was defensive in that moment, I will say, this is an interesting point, I think that God has maybe allowed, maybe I didn't really receive what that person said in that moment, if I think about past friendships, but I will say that even their obedience to being a peacemaker in that moment has led to me maybe down the road actually realizing, oh my goodness, they were right. And there is some truth there was a lot of truth what they said. I was just defensive. So don't be discouraged if that conversation happens and nothing changes immediately. You don't know that the journey that the Lord has them on, but you as a follower of Christ are responsible at living at peace for everyone. So you can go to bed knowing I tried and I had peace. Yep. I try to live at peace what I could with everyone. Mm-hmm. And I think the tempting part, if we go back to point 1, is to then, when that's not received well, to go and just like bash the other person, or be like, I can't believe they didn't receive this well, or I can't believe this. And really actually being like, you know what? No, that ended, and that's okay. And I'm not going to tell an ill word of that person. And that has been a really powerful thing for me. I've had people that have wronged me, and when people bring them up, just not, and it's not in the sense of that I'm being fake, but it's in the sense of I don't need to share the illness that's happened. And I can look at them aside from that situation and say, that's my sister, that's my brother in Christ, aside from what's happened. Totally. So that's been really powerful.
That makes me think, I think just in general, God is calling us to be peacemakers, and by us stepping out and having those conversations when he puts that on our heart to do that, that is a step of obedience. Yeah. And I think so often we correlate obedience to outcome when God does not promise a certain outcome on the other side of obedience. And so I just say that to encourage you in anything with obedience, but specifically with having hard conversations. God might be calling you to step out and be obedient to having that hard conversation, but that outcome is not promised to be something that is even necessarily fruitful for that friendship or that relationship.
And that goes to anything with friendships. Like everything that we're talking about, you might try all of these things with the friends that you have now, and just the outcome is just they're still distant from you. They're not great friends. They're still gossiping or whatever it might be. And I think just really realizing that the outcome is not up to you, and maybe that'll be God. He brings all things together for good, and so maybe that's him redirecting you and leading you to different friends. So I hope that this just encourages you that you are responsible for what you're responsible for, but the outcome is up to him. I love that you mentioned that, Blakely. And that leads us perfectly to point 4, which is understanding your friends' love languages and how they feel loved. And that's something that I really failed at, because I didn't realize. I just thought, well, everyone feels loved by the same ways that I feel loved in a friendship, but that's actually not true. If you think about not true, like how God has created us so uniquely. And if you look at, it says like the body of Christ, it says that some people will be like an ear, some people will be like a foot, some people will be like a hand. People are all created so uniquely. And so there's different ways that they uniquely feel loved. And I think that kind of brings me to this story of whenever I was with Isla. I say this because, and a lot of my stories with Isla, because basically her and I, the timing that she came into my life, I feel like we were both really learning. I had just kind of really given my life 100% to the Lord, and I was learning to not just be a friend, but how to be a godly friend. And she was like my first, like, okay, we are all for the Lord, and we love each other. And so we learned so much about how to be friends together. And so I'll never forget, we were in the car and we had just hung out, and we had gone to like a fun get together of 10 people that week. We had gone to a Bible study that week. We had gone to like a few different things where I would see her there basically. And we were living together. And I didn't really see her whenever I was living together at home. And so we're talking. I'm like, how are you doing in friendship or whatever? And she's like, I really miss you. And I was like, miss me? I was like, what? I was like, how do you miss me? I was like, I've seen you at this, and that. And she's like, well, yeah, that's great. But like, when have we talked there? We haven't actually gotten to have any conversations there. If I think about it, I really didn't know anything about what was going on in her head or how she was feeling. Or maybe if she shared something in Bible study, I was like, okay, that's good. I know that, And I realized, and I was just like, so what do you mean? She's like, oh, I would just love to spend like quality time with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, I our desires and like how we are loved are so uniquely different. For me, seeing her at Bible study is like the biggest. I'm like, my cup is full. I'm ready to go run out the door. I'm having a great time.
Does your cup overflow?
My cup was overflowing. And I was like, this is awesome. And then whenever, and I realized that wasn't the same for her, that whenever she was in a group setting, she kind of more so wanted like that one-on-one, like us going for a walk, or like something sitting on the couch. Like that was such a quality time thing for her, and that filled her cup so much. And that I share that story because I realized that I had really failed a lot of my friends because of I didn't realize how to love them best, and that they were all uniquely different.
So good.
And I treated every friendship the same. But my friendship with Bailey, the one that I don't talk to for 6 months, is different than my relationship with Isla, who we talk like, a few times a week. And my relationship is different with you, who we talk every single day. And just realizing that different friendships, because of our friends are uniquely different, they need different things. And so that really helped Isla and I's relationship, because now when she's talked about that, she was kind of a peacemaker in that sense. And she was like, hey, I actually miss you because I haven't gotten to talk to you. Now I'm able to be like, okay, Isla, I am going to figure out how I can hang out with you. And because I want her to feel loved. And I think what was hard for me is I was doing words of affirmation or other things and sending her text messages, but that wasn't filling her cup because that's not how she was loved. And I think that we focus so much on the love languages for our dating relationships, which is great, and our marriages, which is great, but our friends are super important too. And I think they deserve that same kind of love. They're so important in our life. And so a question that I ended up asking all my friends after I kind of learned that was, how can I texted a bunch of my friends, this is like 2 years ago, and I was like, hey, I want to be a better friend to you. What are some ways that I can love you better? And like, what is a love language for you for friendship? And they all responded. And some of them were like, I don't need to call you every 2 months, like I don't need to talk on the phone. I don't need to text. They're like, but I would love, if whenever you were in town, if we had some quality time together or whatever it was, or hey, I would love to, if we could plan a trip once this year with all of our friends, or I don't know, just something like that. That's kind of like a big one and a massive one. But it was just really cool to hear the different friends and their different desires, because then I had made a list in my phone and I was like, okay, this is how, like my friend Abby, she loves talking on text message and stuff. And so I know, okay, that's good for her. My friend Anna loves talking on text message. So I know to like put that as a priority in my mind, rather than someone like Bailey who doesn't care. It's like, I don't need to spend every day texting her because she doesn't really want to text, and that's not how she feels loved. So I would say that that's something that I used to really fill out as a friend. And I feel like I've really been trying to learn is to kind of know my friends' love languages and how I can love them best. And I think it's made me a better friend. And I'm just continuously learning. And I feel like that's a question I actually need to ask them all again.
So good. And I feel so convicted to do that with my friends, because it is just, it's so true. We have a natural inclination to how we love. And if anyone knows me, you know that my natural inclination, Lawson, don't comment on this, is words of affirmation. And I give that in friendship, whether that's verbally, whether that's through letters, whether that that is my natural way to love a person, a friend, whatever it is. And I have had to have a lot of hard conversations with friends where they're similar to what Isla did to you, where they're like, Blakely, but we have not hung out intentionally in weeks. This happened a lot in college. Like, I have not seen you. I have not spent time with you in weeks. And as much as your paragraph long text meant to me, it would mean so much more if you would actually spend time with me. Yeah. But to me, I didn't even know that, because I'm like, well, I'm telling them how much I love them all the time. So they know, even if I'm not spending all the time in the world with them, they know that I love them so much. And that was such a pivot, such a turning point in my friendships, realizing that everyone has certain ways that they best receive love. That's and good. My natural inclination to give love is not what is received by everyone. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is just such a niche topic that I think I know you've seen so much benefit of addressing that in a friendship. I've seen so much growth from addressing that in my friendships, but I've never done the texting thing.
Yeah.
So I'm actually, if you're listening to this, you're my friend. Hopefully by the time this comes out, you've already received a text from me.
And I think that it kind of is a cool way to wrap up, because if you think about gossiping, our first thing, a lot of times we don't know what to talk about because we're bored, you know, that kind of thing. I think it's a really cool idea that to maybe scribble down some questions, because for some of you, you don't have to text them. You could just see them in person. And the next time you see them in person, me and Isla and I had this conversation one time too of like, what traits do you look for in a friend? And I know her traits and she knows the ones that are mine. And I just thought it was so cool because I know how she, like what she values in a friendship. And I know that I've had friendships really end really harshly and like really hurt me because if we just didn't see friendship at the same, and we didn't see friendship as the same thing. And so I just encourage you, I think that'd be such a cool conversation to have with your friends rather than gossiping. You could ask them like, how can I best love you? What are your love languages? Like these are fun conversations that we're meant to have with our friends rather than talking about the other things that we just, you know, don't need to be talking about that we talked about earlier.
So good. So this gets us to the end of our 1, 2, 3, 4 points on how we have failed as friends.
Failures.
Our failures are not limited to points 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
We could probably go to 54.
Yes.
1004.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I say all of that just to say, if you are sitting here listening and you are feeling shame or guilt or whatever it is, or just, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to like give so much to be a good friend and it's just so exhausting. First of all, I just want to say that if you are in the right friendship, relationship, whatever, that person should always lean on the side of grace. And so I think that this conversation is very twofold because we want to not only challenge you guys, but more so ourselves to be better friends, but also just be reminded that there is so much grace when we fall short. And as much as we grow towards God, we will inevitably always fall short in relationships. Yeah. And just the power of knowing, okay, when I fall short, there's grace, but also I have the ability to right a wrong, and I have the ability to see that and grow from it and not let that shame just kind of like what Maya said, not letting the shame just stick you and keep you stagnant in that place, but actually allowing it to push you towards a healthier friendship and relationship. So
that is so good. And I want to add something really quick, because at Life Retreat, we always did say, because I'd have like a lot of different leaders with a lot of different backgrounds, but I would always tell them to err on the side of grace. When somebody hurts you, like maybe you're listening to this and you're like, wow, all my friends have done this, this, and this. They failed all 4 of those ways. It's like, that's not like, yes, that might be true, but erring on the side of grace for them. It's like, even when I've been wronged, like even when Blakely and I have hurt each other's feeling, it's like, okay, I'm still going to err on the side of grace for her. And that just helps you control your own emotions. And it helps you in your own heart whenever it comes to resentment. And I want to say this really quick before we close. One of the things that I've been so grateful for in my friendship with Blakely is how quick she is to share the ways that she's maybe failed me or that she's hurt me, and or just in general, and the way that she's so humbly been a friend. And I think that is what's made our relationship so strong. So if that is a trait that you're trying to think what's important for me in a friendship, I know that one of those is definitely the humility that I've seen from you, Blakely. So I'm really thankful for you.
Well, I love you. And we love all of you, each and every single one of you. Yes. And we hope that you have an amazing rest of your whatever day it is.
Yes. Bye,
Peace
y'all.
out.